well, welcome. I hope you all had a good lunch, having that gentle food coma. We're going to get moving around today, doing some interactive activities. So I think it'll be a good way to wake you all up for the afternoon session. So I'll introduce myself first. My name's Emily Young. I'm the Senior Community Partnerships and Outreach Manager at Girls Who Code, which is an international nonprofit working to close the gender gap in technology. So before we get started, just wanted to give a huge shout out to the North Dakota State Library and Angie in particular, who's been helping me to coordinate and just being really helpful with our partnership. Really excited to chat with you all today, and I've been speaking with a couple of you on phone calls here and there throughout, so I'm excited to be here. For all of you, just make sure that you all have a packet. If anyone does not have a packet, do you mind raising your hand? Okay, great. Angie will be coming around and giving you out some of these packets. We'll be following along with it. There's a couple sections for notes as well, so feel free to enter anything that you'd like. But we'll try to make it as an interactive experience for you as possible, so that way you can really take tangible strategies back to your library to better engage your young patrons that you're working with. So in order to get started, we'll quickly go over the agenda, which is at the top of your packet as well. The first thing we'll be doing is we're introducing Girls Who Code, which is right now, so check, that's one thing off the list. After that, we'll be doing a little bit more in-depth analysis of our Brave Not Perfect movement. This movement to bring more girls into STEM and get more youth in general as well into STEM, into these really exciting economic opportunities. After that, we'll talk a little bit about our Girls Who Code clubs, which are completely free after school, 3rd to 5th or 6th to 12th grade programming with curriculum and resources that you can take right back to your libraries. After that, we'll be diving deeper into a sample activity section, more about engaging youth in technology. So we'll be doing some sample activities straight from our curriculum that you can walk away with right now, today. And then after that, we'll be doing a design thinking activity as well to start thinking tangibly about what can you do in order to start implementing a STEM program into your library or enhance the great work that you're doing already. So there's going to be a lot of things to hopefully complement those amazing things you've been talking about all throughout today, those maker spaces, the other STEM grants that you're talking about, and how to make them as impactful as possible for those people in your community. And then we'll end off in a Q&A, but please note we're going to be having questions and things all throughout the entire presentation. So don't be shy. If you have something to say, we'd love to hear it, raise your hand. We'll chat all together. And there's going to be a lot of sections where you'll be talking and getting really close with your table and some folks as well. Before we move into that, I'd like to kind of get a sense of who's in the room. So if you are a school librarian, if you can raise your hands. Okay, decent amount. For those of you non-school librarians, you can raise your hand. Awesome, okay. How many of you have some type of STEM programming already in your library? Okay, any of you have for coding in particular, for computer science? Okay, great. So definitely a lot of you folks who are getting that started. We'll find different ways for you to do it as well for those of you who don't have it already in your programs and in your libraries. The exciting thing about what we'll be learning about today is that you do not need to be a coder or even be remotely good at computers in order to lead some of our clubs or get aspects of these computational thinking skills into your library. That's completely fine. Actually, a lot of the people who help to promote our programs and help to facilitate our programs do not have any prior coding experience, including myself, where I'm actually learning a couple coding languages now, which is really exciting. So don't be alarmed. You might say, I don't know coding, never done it before, always been hesitant, but we'll make it nice and easy today to start learning those concepts and then introduce it into your libraries. So this thought of being brave, not perfect, right? And so I'll talk a little bit more about the movement. This is our founder, actually, Reshma Saujani. You might have seen her TED Talk. She talks more about this movement of being brave, not perfect. So what does that actually mean? I'll talk about it in a little bit, but before we do that, I wanted to have a deeper dive into what coding actually is. So what is coding? Can anyone describe or help to define what coding is? Any brave souls here today? Semi-brave, that's fine.
Well, it obviously involves computers.
Yes, perfect, yeah, it involves computers.
Learning the language of a computer?
Yes, exactly. So you're learning that language of a computer, right? So coding, simply put, and how we define it in our nonfiction Learn to Code and Change the World book, which is for 3rd to 5th grade for our curriculum that we have, but goes across a variety of different reading levels. We define it as coding is very simply writing commands to instruct a computer to do something in a programming language it can understand. So it's basically like you're talking to someone, maybe you have to learn French or Italian or Spanish or whatever language that might be. You're basically kind of dumbing down everything that you need the computer to do and explaining it in very simple terms what you want the computer to do. And that's how you create these websites, apps, games, any type of other designs that you might be wanting to do, doing some kind of computer graphics or animations, or even in any particular job ever, you can use these skills to enhance the work that you're doing. When you're learning to code, you're learning to speak one of those different languages, and there's a variety of different ones. That way you can communicate directly with your computer and create those different things that you dream of. And so that's what we want to teach our young people to do. But that's not always the case that everyone is able to do these different things or is going into that field of computer science. And so I wanted to ask you a couple questions. One, what percentage of open software and computing jobs are outside of Silicon Valley? Right, so usually you think of a coder, you think of some guy in a hoodie maybe, in a basement somewhere in California, drinking Mountain Dew and like never seeing the light of day and drinking a lot of coffee. That's not always the case, and we want to change that idea of what a programmer looks like and what they can do. So we want to start thinking about what's that percentage of jobs outside of Silicon Valley where that big boom, so-called in technology, is happening today. The second question I wanted to ask you is what percentage of computing jobs are in non-tech companies? So not just that typical startup like Facebook or Amazon or Twitter, or whatever that might be, but how many jobs are outside of those traditional tech companies? So I'll ask you the first question. What percentage of open software and computing jobs are outside of Silicon Valley? If you think it is 10%, can you raise your hand? Or less? 20% or less? 30% or less? Okay, 40% or less? 50% or less? 60% or less? 70% or less? 80% or less? 90% or less? And 100% or less? Okay, got a big range of those different percentages. Now, how about that percentage of computing jobs that are in non-tech companies? How many of you think 20% or less? How about 20 to 40%? How about 40 to 60%? 60 to 80? And 80 to 100. Okay, good couple guesses. Let's find out what those answers are.
Wow.
Okay, so 91% of jobs are outside of Silicon Valley. They're all across, not only the United States, but everywhere across the world. So those opportunities are available everywhere, right? No matter what job you're in. Because 67% of those computing jobs are outside of traditional tech companies. So that could be maybe in agriculture, in banking, in retail, in entertainment, transportation, manufacturing. There's a variety of different things outside. Some of the largest employers, which might be surprising, it's actually Walmart, which is one of the biggest employers of computing jobs. There's also other ones, like ones that do kind of the tech cables that go all the way across the Atlantic or all throughout the country. There's ones that are in the medicine field, right? And so there's different people programming things to better know where your blood vessels are so the cameras can go in there, right? There's a lot of different things that you can do with coding. And so it is a great way for you to have those economic opportunities by building up your skills and having it translate to whatever you are passionate about. Okay. So as you can see, there's lots of jobs in tech. It's actually one of the #1 new jobs for new wages in the country, right? And so because a lot of the computing jobs are popping up now, and a lot of the salaries are actually much higher in starting salaries and median salaries across the country, we want to think about, okay, what's that opportunity for women? How many women are actually in the industry, and is this a problem? right? So what percentage of tech industry employees do you think are actually women? How many of you think, let's see, 90% or above? 80% or above? 70? 60% or above? 50% or above? 40% or above? 30% or above? 20% or above? And 10% or above? Or under 10? Okay, let's see. So here's the problem. The gender gap is actually widening, right? And so in 1995, 37% of the jobs were held by women. But today, only 23% of tech industry employees are women. So if you're going into a job and you are in that company or that environment, it's you and perhaps 3 other men, potentially, right? In a lot of jobs, it's not even the case, right? Because also within that company, who is actually seen in leadership positions within those software computing jobs and who is not. And so that is the problem, because we want to make sure that women are more represented in the industry, right? Because oftentimes you're a big consumer, right? Of products, of services, of programs. And we need to make sure that women are also in that same conversation, or people of any gender representation, creed, race, whatever that might be. We want more people in the door to have opportunities, number one, for themselves, but also to contribute to society and be able to create those things that help the world and make that difference. Women are drastically underrepresented in educational pathways as well. So less than 4% of women are choosing to major in computer science or related disciplines. Less than 1% are majoring in computer science in particular. So in North Dakota in particular, actually, there are less women going into the field. So those actually going into it, their freshman year of college, is about 18% across the country in terms of women who are going into that field. In North Dakota, it's actually 14%. And so we want to make sure, too, that across the state that girls and women feel empowered to be able to take these skills and translate it to whatever they want to do. And even if they're minoring in it, going into related fields, that they have these skills to back up whatever they want to do. So what does this look like for the future? So how many jobs will be available in computing-related fields in 2020? So that's the first question. Second question will be, what percentage will be held by women? So the first question, in 2020, how many jobs will be open in computing-related fields? Does anyone have a general guess? You can shout it out, that's okay.
75%.
75. How many else? Okay.
200, I believe I read something that said something about 207,000
Okay.
throughout the United States.
So 207,000 jobs in computing are across the United States. What percentage do you think will be held by women?
4%, 5%.
Okay, 4%, 5%. All right, let's see. So in 2020, there's actually going to be 1.4 million jobs that will be open in the US in computing-related fields. So it's not simply just a software engineer, perhaps, but maybe it's related fields. That's 1.4 million jobs that are possibilities. And out of those, only 29% will be US graduates. And only 3% of those will be filled by women. And so actually, you're pretty accurate, the 4 or 5%. And so we want to make sure that we're changing that. But why is this actually a problem? So why does this happen? So there's this thing called an interest cliff, right? So oftentimes in elementary schools, girls are often even either on the same level or often outperforming boys in STEM-related fields. They're interested in it, but by the time that they get to middle school, something happens where actually they start to drop off. Whether it is because of this confidence gap, right? They're like, oh, actually, I'm not good at math, or I'm not good at science, or I don't want to go into it, or my friends aren't in it, and so I'm not going to do that, or that's a boy thing, right? And so we want to change that narrative. But also, there's something called that lack of bravery, right? Oftentimes, boys, they're young, you say, okay, they're socialized to take risks, to go in the dirt and play around with it, or go to the highest mountain and jump off into the water, right? They're often taught to take risks. But girls are often socialized to be perfect. They're socialized for perfection, where they're constantly thinking about, okay, well, I'm not gonna apply to this job because I don't have every single one of these qualifications. But boys might say, oh, actually, I'm gonna apply to that job and I don't have that many qualifications, but I'm going to put myself out there because I'm going to take a risk. So how can we make sure that we're teaching girls to be brave, to be resilient, to persist in the field that is growing ever so exponentially? And so we have a quote from Reshma, who's our founder. We have to teach girls to be brave in schools and early in their careers when it has the most potential to impact their lives and the lives of others. And we have to show them that they will be loved and accepted not for being perfect, but for being courageous. So I want you to start thinking about that in your libraries. What are some of the trends that you're seeing of your young patrons who are coming in? And how can you make sure that across the board, no matter what gender, that everyone is being socialized to be brave and being socialized to take risks and to ask questions, to make mistakes, because that's how you learn and that's how you grow and that's how you will persist in this 21st century. So for our mission, we are working to inspire, educate, and equip girls with those computing skills needed to pursue 21st century opportunities. And so we'll do that by having free and flexible computer science programs across the board for our students. And so we serve a variety of students, and we serve all girls, but especially girls who are underrepresented in computer science and technology fields in terms of race, creed, or background. As we had just mentioned earlier today, what is that idea of diversity? How are you being inclusive in your library? And we'll be talking a little bit about that today. We want to serve girls who have little or no access or exposure to computer science education in school, who are free and reduced lunch eligible, and also if they identify as female regardless of gender assignment at birth or legal recognition, right? We want to be a very inclusive environment as much as possible. Because it's also important that everyone's included in this conversation, that there are women in technology who are doing amazing things and need to also be recognized. And that's good for boys, girls, no matter what gender you are. And so we want to spread that and change that narrative across the board. So in terms of our educational philosophy, I'm just going to keep an eye on the time here as well. We do a few different things. For all of our programs, we, one, want to teach more than code. Coding is not just being able to program on a computer or build a website, but it's those soft skills, the social emotional development for students that becomes really important and key for them to persist in that field. Those ideas of bravery, resilience, how can we prepare them for long-term success in their careers? The idea of sisterhood and collaboration. We know that girls, it's very hard to do something alone, right? And so you need that support system with each other, with you all as integral members of the community to be able to feel supported in that environment. And lastly, think about real-world relevance and impact. If a girl's thinking, oh, okay, I'm doing this coding, it's really cool, but it actually has nothing to do with my actual life, they're not going to persist in that field. And so we want them to understand that whatever they're doing can be interest-based, that we're having project-based learning and real-world relevance by taking the skills that they have, combining it with the passions that they already have as well, and being able to make a positive impact on their community. Throughout these programs, we want them to be brave and resilient, socially just, emotionally intelligent, and intellectually curious. So how can we foster that with students? Well, we have a few different programs, and I'll go pretty quickly over this because I really want to dive into those sample activities to have you walk away with them. We have a few different main programs. Those in the teal color, those are our big buckets. So the biggest one we have is our clubs program, and that's the one right now we have about 8 clubs across North Dakota. We have about 6,500 across the country. We actually just went international as well, which was really exciting. And so now we are also in Canada, the UK, India, and slowly going to other countries as well. So I'll talk mostly about our clubs program, which once again is free. There's grant opportunities for you, which are also free, and different ways that you can get free resources across the board. We have a summer immersion program and campus, which are 2 summer programs, not currently yet in North Dakota, but they're in select cities across the country. We have college loops. So for those students who are going to be going to college, they'll be able to get access to networking, field trips, guest speakers, all those different things in college. In the blue buckets, we have a few resources for you. So we have Women in Tech lesson plans that you can actually, it's free, you can download them, and they're teaching girls about different women who are in the industry. Oh, also, I can email you all of these slides, so if you don't want to start like feverishly writing things down, totally fine, I can send those to you after. And then we have a podcast that we have as well. We have our books, and we have a sisterhood, which is a digital visual album that we have as well. Once again, sending it to you, but I just wanted to have it on here so you have it when I email it over. And we want to think about the pipeline. So as you're doing your work, there's a few main buckets that we want you to keep in mind. The first one is thinking about 3rd to 5th grade clubs. And this is actually a book club type model. We give you all of the books for free. We just ship them to you. Just tell us how many students you have. You'll be able to use that, get the students interested in it. And then in 6th and 12th grade, you have another version of clubs, which is a deeper dive. Once again, you don't need any coding experience. You can do it right away. Then they move into college, do our College Loops program. They can network, get access to other job opportunities. Especially we have partnerships with hundreds of corporate partners across the country: Amazon, Microsoft, Twitter, Walmart, Facebook, JPMorgan Chase. Variety of other ones as well, P&G, a few different others. And so they actually post jobs specifically for our alumni if they were in our club or in our summer programs. And so they could get hired right through there, either internships or jobs. And then they become our alumni. We actually have, as of this year, 185,000 girls that we've served across the country and beyond. And we've estimated reached over 100 million girls through our books, our podcasts, and other materials as well.
I have a question about all this.
Yeah, of course.
You know, do boys, if these are all girl clubs, do boys ever feel discriminated against? And another point I'd like to make is because have they ever done research is maybe one of the reasons that boys tend to be in those areas is there are some biological differences. They say girls develop verbal skills earlier than boys. They utilize both sides of their brains, and perhaps boys are more left brain thinkers, which leads to more analytical predisposition. I wonder if you've ever given that any thought.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll answer the first one first. So while we are supporting girls and we want to make sure that we have a girl-supportive environment in all of our programs, our clubs program actually, it's very inclusive as well. You can definitely have boys join the club or people of any gender. So we actually have had some libraries, some schools do that, where they call it coding club, or girls who code curriculum. The best thing about it is that it's very flexible. It's a plug-and-play type model, so you can pick and choose aspects that you like and be able to support it. So we actually have had clubs where boys can join the club. But I would say across the board of what we found in schools and libraries, oftentimes when there's like a robotics club or Lego leagues or coding or whatever that might be, boys tend to join those clubs and girls tend to be pushed out of the space.
We have that both in New Salem. They're very progressive.
Right.
Girls and boys in our high school robotics.
Oh, that's great. Nice. Okay. See, and I think that's what we want to strive for, right? Getting more representation across the board into those clubs. So it really depends on you, it depends on your community, how you want to get students involved in your club, but you can make it that inclusive environment to talk to them about it. And I would say even having boys join the club, it is important to have that representation. We were just talking about it earlier today as well, thinking about representation in our media, in our resources. That is essential and key to making sure that people of all genders have that representation. And then the second piece as well that you mentioned, we had a report with Accenture, which is one of our partners as well, to doing some more of this research about girls and boys in the space. It is a variety of kind of natural interests, but also how we are, I think, teaching girls and boys what is supposedly feminine versus masculine at a very young age, whether the toys that we're presenting to them, the colors that we give them, the programs that we put them in. So I think it's kind of a mix of both, I would say. And so I think the main piece is, whatever it might be, getting girls kind of excited about it, so at least they have the option to go into it. Good question. So I'm going to skip over a little bit to get to those activities, but we have a variety of different books as well. Once again, we have our Learn to Code and Change the World book on the left here. We give it free to all of our clubs. I'll talk more about it in a bit. We actually have baby code books, a fiction series, how to code a sandcastle, which is more like toddler, a little bit more older age. So there's lots of different books and resources you can get access to. This new book that our founder Rachel had just written, called Brave Not Perfect, is a little bit more of the maybe young adult, like high school, all the way up until young professionals and older as well. So there's a variety of different age groups that you can work with, and I'll talk more about how to get those free books in a second. We also have our other resources, our Women in Tech lesson plans. our Sisterhood, which is a digital visual album. And so it features like some rappers and dancers and different types of things that we showcase for some of the alumni in our program. And then we have a podcast as well. It's really interesting if you'd like. They actually do some interviews with women in the field. So it's another way to kind of enrich the students' experience. Okay, I'm going to quickly go over the clubs program, but I really want to make sure we're getting to those activities. And my luggage actually got stuck in Chicago when I was on my way over from New York. So all my swag is in there and flyers and everything. So I'll have it for tomorrow. It's currently on the plane, so I'll go pick it up after this. But tomorrow I'll give you all those clubs flyers and everything, and some like buttons and pens and cute things you can take back. So keep a lookout tomorrow, but I'll be here all day tomorrow as well. So for our clubs, I'll give you a quick video about this. So I just want to give you a sneak peek into what a club actually looks like.
Wake up, work, and it's got me pretty stressed out to the point where I don't really eat like I should. I'm a fueler for a rental company.
In the wintertime, it's a lot more strenuous. He works, anywhere from 7 in the morning till 4 in the morning the next day, 7 days a week straight.
My work is dangerous. I'm basically driving a bomb around, the truck full of fuel.
My dad works a lot. He wakes up early and comes home late at night.
I wouldn't want Courtney to do what I do. I want her to go to college. I want her to have more opportunities in life. That's why I put Courtney in coding.
Okay, girls.
Amy, my
The goal was really just trying to get them comfortable and not being afraid to make mistakes. Everybody listen to Courtney, please.
So to get the cat to pop out, I had to get it out. I had to just leave that there. It's difficult because you have to do this math with it.
And what's that math for?
To when you click to show where it will go.
Okay, so
Coding has taught me that nothing comes easy.
Girls Who Code is a lot more than just coding. We cover a lot of life skills, asking questions, working together, and teamwork.
Coding makes you be able to create stuff. I get to see what I create come to life.
I put her in these extracurricular activities so she can advance and have a career that's less labor intensive.
I think coding will give them, more opportunity for not only employment, but it's also sort of the next craft.
Courtney is the center of my world. I've had full custody of her since I was in the military. She's kept me strong and focused. My goal before I die is to just make sure that her life's as comfortable as can be, and I'm here as much as I can be for her.
I like to make stories, which means I would like to make them come to life. My dream is to probably work at Cartoon Network.
Which she always, when she puts her mind to it, she can do anything she wants.
Courtney's smart, she's kind, and she's a coder.
Okay, so hopefully that gave you an idea more about what a club can do for girls in your community. So in this case in particular, they're doing it at a school, and so there's different ways that you can learn a variety of different things in the programs. Okay, good. So for our clubs, just to quickly go over, we actually have our clubs, which once again is broken down either the 3rd to 5th grade clubs, which is more the book club type model, or 6th to 12th grade clubs, which is a kind of a deeper dive into more computational thinking and the actual coding skills. Clubs can be led by facilitators, so literally anybody. You do not need any coding experience as long as you are 18 and over and can be background checked. And since all of you are working at your libraries, you are background checked 10 times over, so no problem at all. We could just get a letter from your library saying that you've been background checked and you're all set pretty much. for the 2 different programs, the 3rd to 5th grade, it's featuring our best-selling Learn Dakota and Change the World book. And so for the girls, they actually read a section of the book, and then they do discussion activities using chapter guides that we'll provide to you. And then at the end, they do coding activities. Either they can do it unplugged without compromising quality, so you can actually teach these skills without having them all be on a computer. So I think that's especially a great part about it, is that if you, let's say, your laptop cart's going all around to other libraries as well, totally fine, you can do this unplugged version without compromising that quality. And we'll do a couple of sample activities today, which will be exciting. For the 3rd to 5th grade clubs, it's pretty flexible, I would say, across the board for both programs. You could do it about maybe 10 meetings throughout the year. You could do it 5, 6, 7, 8, you could do 15. Make it work for your community, whatever works best for you. And it could go anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes. Either, let's say you're a school librarian, you could do it during lunch, or doing maybe a study hall period, whatever that might be, or after school or on the weekends. Totally free reign. Essentially, we provide the curriculum and resources, and you can do with it what works best for you. Our 6th to 12th grade clubs, it's a little bit different. Everything's actually centered around what's called a Girls Who Code project, where they're building a project that they care about. They identify real-world problems in their community, like maybe environmentalism, or sharing their language that they speak at home, or LGBTQ rights, or anti-bullying, whatever that might be, and they're able to address that problem using their new coding skill. So maybe they're building a game about teaching people about anti-bullying, or a website environmentalism, and we'll look into that in a bit. This is also pretty broad. You could go anywhere from a minimum of about 10 meetings or so, either weekly, bi-weekly, every 3 weeks, whatever that works for you, for an hour to 2 hours per session. And it could go from then all the way up until the full academic year or year after year. So feel free to make it as flexible as you like, but we have over 120 plus hours worth of curriculum, so feel free to use what you like. Okay, and we'll support you in a variety of different ways. Once again, I'll send this over to you as well. But we have a custom online training. The only things that you'll really need, real quickly, is space to actually host the club, so your library. If you are a 6th to 12th grade club, you will need access to computers. They can share, that's okay. But they would need computers or Chromebooks, whatever you have, and access to internet. And then for the 3rd to 5th grade, you'll need copies of our book. We'll send you 5 books for free to start at your library. You'll get to keep those at your library. Plus, however many students are in your club, they'll get an extra book that's free for the student to keep. So that way you have 5 as your classroom set, and then you have the rest of them to give to the students. And we'll ship that all to you pretty quickly. Otherwise, the first couple of chapters are free and online in a PDF form in case you don't get your books right at your start date, since we'll need to know how many students are in your club. And then lastly, you'll just need that person to facilitate the club. So going back, so we'll give you everything that you need, all the supplies, resources. This year we actually had a promotion where we gave out free t-shirts to everybody. And we actually, for every single one of the clubs, we have what's called a Clubs Fund. So it's a $300 mini grant, and you'll just get it. So if you have 3 or more students in your club, you just have to claim your money. You can use it in a couple different ways, either on a platform called box.com, where you just order snacks and materials, or hand sanitizer, whatever you might need. Or you can get reimbursed for what you're purchasing, whether it's robots or other materials, or maybe you're going on a field trip, whatever you'd like to use for your club. But those $300, super easy to come by. Just get 3 students in your club, and then we'll send it over to you. And so, as I mentioned before, we've had 185,000 girls served to date. We actually, for our 30,000 college-age alumni, they're majoring in computer science-related fields at 15 times the national average. And for our Black and Latina alumni, they're actually going into it at 16 times the national average. So it's definitely important to get them excited about it. Great. So to launch a club, I'll give you more information tomorrow when I have my flyers. But you can sign up starting mid-April for the next upcoming school year. So you can feel free to do that. I'll give you more information about it afterwards. You can also come find me. I'll be at a table tomorrow pretty much all day. Okay, we are an official partner with the North Dakota State Library. We're super excited about it. I don't know, some of you might have seen, I did a webinar with the library a few months back and talked a little bit about it. But you actually can get specific benefits by being a partner with the North Dakota State Library. So you'll have additional support, more ongoing support, especially from me, as well as priority access to what's called a community partner fund, so you could get additional funding potentially. So it depends, the more clubs that get started with more students in it, you can get additional funding as well, and we'll give you more information about that later. In order to apply, when you are applying, just make sure you indicate that you're a partner with the North Dakota State Library, so we can track that you're getting affiliated with us. And once again, I can send this information to you afterwards. Okay, great. So keeping an eye on time. Finally here, you made it. We're going to be talking about engaging youth in technology. So we'll be going over a couple of different things that are featured in our club's curriculum. So for 6th and 12th grade, essentially the first thing that you're doing is building sisterhood, right? Or that idea of community. So it depends, who's in your club. So you'll have some community building activities, maybe icebreakers, group builders, ways for them to understand computational thinking concepts, but also just to get to know each other more. Second piece is having those women in tech spotlights, featuring women who are in the industry, and we'll be talking about that today. Doing some self-guided coding tutorials. That's why we call it facilitator. You're more like a guide on the side versus sage on the stage, so you don't need to be an expert. The students will follow along, self-guided material. And then they have stand-ups, which are periods at the end where they share and showcase some of their things that they've learned. For the 3rd to 5th grade clubs, they'll do those sisterhood activities first, the community building. Then they will read and reflect using the books that we'll provide for free, and then do a Girls Who Code challenge, which is the unplugged or online activity. So it depends on what you want to do. And then we'll close out for the 3rd to 5th grade clubs as well.